Welcome to the new video. Over the years, the Commodore name has represented various companies, from hotel chains to cruise lines to environmental cleanup companies. And now nobody has ever seriously made the claim that any of those companies had any relationship to the company founded by Jack Tramiel named Commodore, which, as we know, started out in typewriters and then became famous for computers. However, it's not always as cut and dry as a hotel or a cruise line. There were Commodore-branded products that hit the market that I've seen people mistakenly associate with Jack Tramel's Commodore over the years. One such product was radios. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. If you search on the internet, especially on eBay, you'll find quite a few radios with the Commodore name emblazoned on them. And you may also notice that they were on the market around the same time that Jack Tramel's Commodore was in business. So are these radios somehow related to Jack Tramel's Commodore? By and large, they are not. A company named Commodore Import Corp. Was incorporated in Brooklyn, New York in 1957, a year prior to Jack Tramiel founding Commodore Portable Typewriter Company in Toronto in 1958. Commodore Import Corp. Was importing radios from the Far East and marketing them for sale in the United States starting in 1957 and continuing at least through the 1960s and the 1970s. Commodore Import Corp. And all of their products shown here had no relationship whatsoever with Jack Tramel's Commodore. So, did Jack Tramel's Commodore ever take a radio to market? Well, the answer is a definite yes, but we only know that because we've actually seen the radios. We've not seen any documentation for them. I don't have any advertisements, I don't have any Commodore product announcements, nothing like that. There's very little documentation at all surrounding Commodore being in the radio business. So first, I'll walk you through the documentation that I have been able to find. Let's go check that out. I'll start with Jamaica. In 1956, the government of Jamaica implemented the Export Industry Encouragement Act, which provided relief to companies in regard to income tax and customs duties. This was an attempt to strengthen the Jamaican manufacturing sector. On November 4th, 1959, a new subsidiary of Commodore Portable Typewriter Company named Commodore Industries Limited applied to be an approved export manufacturer under this Jamaican law and was granted approval with production set to begin on July 1st, 1960. Commodore's stated purpose for opening this factory was to manufacture typewriters and, as can be seen here, radio receiving sets. By December 1961, Commodore's Jamaican factory had been abandoned, and it's unknown whether anything was ever manufactured there, radios or otherwise. Another bit of evidence is George Pervin's testimony to the Royal Commission appointed to inquire into the failure of Atlantic Acceptance Corporation. George Pervin was the owner of a successful typewriter sales and repair operation in New York and became an early partner with Jack Tramiel and Manfred Kapp when Commodore purchased his New York companies as a means to expand Commodore from their Canadian roots into the United States. In George Pervin's testimony on February 3, 1967, he makes a very brief mention of Commodore having been in the radio business and that the venture was not financially successful. Quote, "Conversations always were taking place about radios, which was something before my time and I understood was a financial failure." Pervin said Commodore was in the radio business before his time, so when was that? Well, we can use the founding of Herald Superior Office Equipment, Inc. in New York as the official date which George Pervin became involved. The manner by which Commodore entered the U.S. market was by purchasing Superior Typewriter Company and Herald Square business machines from the Pervin family, then combining those two companies into Herald Superior Office Equipment, Inc., which was later renamed to Commodore Business Machines, Inc. Herald Superior was officially incorporated on July 21, 1960. If Commodore was in the radio business before Pervin's time, that was between October 10, 1958 and July 21, 1960. Next, we'll look at Commodore's 1966 annual report to shareholders. In Jack Tramel's letter to shareholders from Commodore's 1966 annual report, there's a single sentence regarding Commodore's involvement in the radio business. Quote, "Sales of typewriters and radio stereo equipment are making solid progress." The very next page of the annual report shows a photo collage of Commodore's product line, But there isn't any radio stereo equipment to be seen in that image. Ricoh adding machines, Filer adding machines, a dry copy machine, office furniture, and photos of office furniture being manufactured in Commodore's 946 Warden Avenue facility in Scarborough. My best guess is that Jack Tramel's mention of radio stereo equipment here was due to Commodore owning a company named Pearl Sound Distributors Limited, which sold radios and record players. However, to my knowledge, these were sold with Pearl Sound branding, not Commodore branding. That was all the documentation I was able to find that even mentioned Jack Tramel's Commodore's involvement in the consumer radio market. Now, I mentioned the reason we know that Commodore was in this market, or at least Commodore-branded products related to Jack Tramel's Commodore, entered the consumer market, is because we've seen the products ourselves, and they still exist, and people own them and have them in their collections today. Let's take a look at a couple of those now. This is a Commodore Comet 9 radio from the collection of Carlo Sant'Agostino. It seems likely that this would be the radio that George Purvin mentioned in his testimony. These were sold around 1959 or 1960. The Commodore Comet 9 radio was not produced by Commodore, but, like the typewriters and adding machines Commodore was selling at the time, it was imported from Czechoslovakia. The Commodore Comet was a rebranded version of the T2800B T58 produced by Tesla in Czechoslovakia. We can be assured that these were sold by Jack Tramel's Commodore for several reasons. One is the logo. This cursive logo design was in use by Commodore from September 1959 through 1965. I did an entire video on the history of Commodore's logo, so if you're bored, go check that out. Also, the 680 King Street West address was a well-known Commodore location. Here it is on the back cover of Commodore's 1962 annual report to shareholders. Next up is the Commodore 202 adding machine radio. I've got a couple of these in my collection, including this one in the original box. I've never managed to find any official documentation about these radios, but I found at least one website which claimed they were given away by Commodore as promotional items in support of their Commodore 202 adding machine, which was released in 1967. As such, I have to assume these adding machine radios hit the market around 1967. We can be certain that these were associated with Jack Tramel's Commodore due to the famous Commodore Chicken Lips logo and the simple fact that it's a miniature clone of the Commodore 202 adding machine. Regardless, given that this was a promotional item, I don't think we can count this as a Commodore product. After all, Commodore gave away screwdrivers as promotional items, and I don't think anybody would say Commodore was in the screwdriver business. Finally, there was this impressive-looking Commodore-branded stereo system from 1988. However, like the Commodore 202 adding machine radio from 1967, these were also a promotional item rather than a standalone Commodore product. They were bundled in the Australian market as the Amiga Mega Pack, as can be seen in this advertisement. The stereo was a Samsung VIP 1100 system with Commodore branding. So, that's all for this video. What did we learn? Well, most of the radios you see on the internet and on eBay that say they're Commodore branded, those are actually from Commodore Import Corp., not the same Commodore that Jack Tramiel created. There were 3 Commodore-branded radios that we know of that exist. We might discover more, you never know. 2 of those were just promotional items though, so I don't count them as products. That means there was exactly 1 Commodore-branded radio that hit the market as a consumer product during the whole time of Commodore's existence. It would have been around 1960. It was the rebranded Tesla, sold as a Commodore Comet 9. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.